Well, it's March 28th. Welcome to Black Men Speak podcast, a podcast designed to feature black men, let folks know that we are here for our families and doing great things in our communities to make it better. So I hope you're enjoying the weekend wherever you are. And tonight is a really great guest that's going to be on. When I thought of doing this podcast, it was to feature someone like our guest, Michael Jasper. Someone he's the epitome of a brother whose story, who wouldn't necessarily be told in the media, but needs to be. Part of Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech states that, I have a dream that my four little children will one day live in a nation where they will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Well, Dr. King examined the character and content of this brother. He would be well pleased. He's a husband of Stephanie Jasper, his college sweetheart from the Georgetown University. In over 25 years they've been married. He's a father of two very competent, intelligent young ladies in their own right, Lauren and Natalie, and his son Matthew. He's a pillar in his hometown community of Pittsburgh. As a VP of marketing at PNC Bank. And one thing you may not know about, he's a passionate barbecuer with a smoker that rivals some restaurateurs. If you don't know, if you haven't seen it, I'm sure you could travel to Pittsburgh and he would show you. But tonight we're going to give him a chance to tell his story because it needs to be told. So, Michael, welcome, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Keith. Thank you for having me. Thank you. And that's such
Oh,
a warm introduction. I appreciate it.
of course, of course. So, we're going to take you back. I want to just bring up this clip
Okay.
of your this program that you're in, and then we're going to that'll be our jumping off point. Let me just
Okay.
share here. All right. Oh, wait. Yeah, here we go. Love it, love it. So, yeah, take you back. So, what made, and I don't just want to talk about what made you decide to make um, that film, and why at that point did you think a story about you wouldn't be told?
Well, you know, every day or yeah, practically every day when you look at the news and you see stories about black men, it's a stereotype, it's negative, and you don't hear about black men who are just going about raising their families, acting in their communities, trying to help their fellow man and be positive. I mean, and so the that that film was from a project called the Game Changers, And so it was sort of introductory video of what I would like to see, like how we're being portrayed. And so made that video just to kind of paint the point that, my story will never be told. And it's still true today. You never see stories of Black men who are just quote unquote doing the right thing. It's always some negative spin, or it's these insurmountable odds of overcoming challenges, and nothing wrong with overcoming challenges. I don't want to be like that, but we're always shown in a negative light. And so that video and some of the other videos that I made, like these documentaries, tried to show positive aspects of Black men. And I think it's important as a father, as a husband, as a member of the community, that people see that. Need to see a lot more of it, frankly.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we do this podcast live stream show, is to feature brothers like yourself. So we're gonna get in a little bit. So I hope you're ready.
Yep.
So you grew up in Pittsburgh, and so back then, what traits would you say help you develop as who you are by growing up in the city?
At that time when I grew up, Pittsburgh was going through a change. It was a very blue-collar town that was going through the continued exodus of the steel industry. And so the one thing I always sort of took from that experience is that, Black folks didn't have much. I mean, my family didn't have much, but we had each other. And so I felt at the time that was normal. As I look back on my upbringing, I realized I was very fortunate. I grew up in a very, very stable home, and always knew that I was loved, always knew that I was supported, always knew that I could accomplish anything I wanted to. If you put in hard work, you could do it. I never had a sense of not being able to do something, not until high school, when I was trying to get, around 7th or 8th grade, when I was accepted into a private school, but we couldn't afford it. And I think it was the first time I had this realization that, okay, well, there's a difference there. But I never let that stop me. And so that was the first time I kind of realized that, economic differences and your upbringing and where you're from and what your parents did may matter in terms of your immediate opportunities. But I was never, ever given any inkling I couldn't accomplish something. So I think that was probably, coming from Pittsburgh, was the greatest thing. I mean, I still have very close friends and obviously families here. And, Pittsburgh can be a tough city for Black folks, but I think growing up here with my family really helped me steel me for the future to come, that anything that I set my mind to, I could accomplish it.
Okay, great. Yeah, and that's great, because then it leads to the fact that you were applied to Georgetown University and then you were accepted. Were you there on because I know you ran track. Were you there on a scholarship? You were on a scholarship. Okay.
Right.
Fantastic.
I was recruited by several schools. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, honestly, Georgetown was the one school that, of all the other schools that recruited me, that seemed to take academics serious, and the track team was phenomenal. But yeah, so I was recruited by several schools. Made the choice to go to Georgetown. Not only was it a great school for middle distance runners, but academically, it really stood out from the others, and various other reasons, driving distance from home, things. So yeah, I was there and ran all 4 years. Life changing.
That's great. So yeah, so entering, because yes, Georgetown their track team was phenomenal, and in the middle distance. So when you entered, knowing that the acclaim that Georgetown track had, how did you feel coming in? What are some of the things you had to do to get, I guess, prepared to the the rigors of college, the college schedule versus high school?
So from a track perspective, it was really nothing technically that different. It was just the volume of the work was a lot more. And the competition, the people that you ran against, your teammates. I mean, you're like, some of the best in the country. And so every day you sometimes you took that butt whooping, so you just had to go ahead and do it. Ran a lot, and the volume of the workouts was something that I had to get adjusted to. So getting injuries and things like that, just from the amount of running that you had to do compared to high school. And the pressure was different. I think a lot of times in middle school and high school, if you're an athlete, a lot of times it's just you're cheered on and congratulations, you ran or you worked hard or you played hard as you could. In Georgetown, you were expected to win. You were expected to put up numbers. You were expected to compete at a certain level. And if you didn't, you heard about it. So,
Wow, yeah.
And it wasn't that. One of the thing that really hit home with that is my junior year indoor nationals, the 4x800, we came in fourth, and I thought our head coach, Coach Gaggs, was going to make us walk home from Indianapolis. I mean,
Yeah, I heard Coach was tough.
he was livid, and his thing was, "You're the best team. You should have won." And we won it the next year, and part of that was a relief that we finally accomplished what we were supposed to do. But it's right. You come there and you're expected to compete at a certain level, and you don't meet those expectations, you hear about it. So there's a constant pressure to compete at a high level that wasn't there in high school or even club track. It was a big difference.
Wow. Okay. And so, yeah, you mentioned that you won. So you were NCAA champion, which is something I've never experienced, being on the baseball team. but describe for what was that like? Because of course we've experienced championships from the basketball side, but from the track side, and being in it personally, how do you feel you took those winnings and onto your next endeavors, and what was just like to be a champion?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it meant different things at different times. I think when it happened, it was this sort of surreal feeling that we competed and we won. And I can't, even talk about it. We're mentioning the other guys on that relay team, Ethan Fry, Steve Holman, Rich Kanah, and they're just phenomenal athletes and great friends and phenomenal men, actually. And at that time, it was the competitiveness. We beat Villanova, you beat Arkansas. It was just that uber competitiveness of lining up and racing and beating someone. And then to find out you broke the American record, you're just, you can't put it into words. As time goes by, it's more of you recognize it becomes a legacy. It's something that won't be duplicated. I mean, you won and you broke the record. It can't happen. And then it kind of says, hey, you did pretty well in college. You did pretty well in what that means, and it leads to that sense of there's nothing wrong with competition, and don't be afraid to be the best or strive to be the best. Success can be I think some people kind of pull away from success sometimes. That's kind of hard to describe, but there's nothing wrong with being successful if you do it the right way, through hard work and you
Right.
accomplish those things. And what it leads to, it gives you a sense of confidence that if I'm successful, I can be successful in other areas of life. Whatever you think is important to you, you can be successful as well. So now when I think back on it, it's the brotherhood, it's the memories, it's the fact that Georgetown was so instrumental in my life, as well as all those guys on the track team and Coach Gags and everything that, that's what it means now. It definitely has a different meaning, but it's something that will go on with me. As Ethan Fry said, longer we go, the bigger it becomes, or faster we
Yeah,
become.
right.
But
I know, right? That's awesome.
right.
Awesome. But so then around that time when you guys were winning, you also won in another area. So and September of 1989, I'll take you back. There was a beautiful young woman that entered the campus of Georgetown named Stephanie. I'm not sure her maiden name was at the time, but Smith.
Yeah.
Ventures on campus. So we're going back.
Right.
So how did you meet? And then how did you, we'll just ask, how did you meet?
Well, we met, we both were on the track team. And so, similarities there, just being both on the track team, both being athletes. She was Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. And I think at first I viewed her as someone, hey, she's Pennsylvania, got to take care of, Pennsylvania, But over time, we really bonded. I think we were different in some respects that really complemented each other. I was a junior and she was a freshman, and I think she helped me in a lot of ways. Going through a really rough patch of life, and so I always thought that I kind of took care of her. So I think there was a common bond there. And yeah, we met then, and that's 30 years ago, right? I think something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And so was it something that was a immediate connection, or was it something that kind of grew as the years went on?
I think there was immediate sort of affection and wanting to, from my perspective, really look after her immediately. I think, especially when I look back, I really relied on her a lot because, like I said, my father had passed after my freshman year, very unexpectedly, and my ability to deal with that, I just couldn't. I was young, and I went back to campus right after it happened in late July. Back on campus in August because so he would want me there, and I had close friends in college. That I was telling you about, like Chuck, Adrian, Dwayne, DeWan, Kent, Everett. Dear friends, but it's hard to rely or confide in them about what's going on. Coach was really trying to help me, but it's hard, and even your track buddies or teammates. And the one thing that Steph was able to do with her quiet strength was help me get through that. I mean, my sophomore year was really rough. It was off the track was really rough because of that. And so
right.
Her quiet strength really got me through that. And I think I kind of helped her a little bit too. And she tells me, with being at Georgetown and everything. And so it was a bond from that standpoint. And I always knew when we first kind of got together that she was the one. I think I was being hard-headed and saying, not really admitting to it at first, but I think I always knew that she was the one because she was definitely special and she was different. And, I think it was the first time who I relied on a female. I mean, besides someone in my family, relied on them, for strength and for encouragement. And sometimes it takes you to get older to realize that. It took me a while to really understand what that connection was.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same today, that we have that connection, and it's a very powerful connection that's beyond just the physical and things. And of course,
Right.
that's there as a man, but it's beyond that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think at times we will try, as men, will try to run away from that, those things that are not more cerebral or feelings, and think, well, because we don't have the physical connection, or it wanes, that it's not, the person that we are with is not special. But when you can have both, how it's truly magical. And so, that's wonderful, and I'm glad that you were had the intelligence to acknowledge that, just for yourself, and to stick with it. So that's pretty great. So
Yeah, yeah.
then, you mentioned her quiet strength. So what are some of the other things that you feel have kept your relationship so strong over the years? Because 30 plus years, I mean, that's truly a long time and should be commended. So, what are
Thank
some
you.
of those things?
I think it's communication is key, and really talking about how you're feeling, and discussing them. Not if you have a disagreement or something that you're not on the same page, not discussing them in a way that one of us wins or loses. Discussing them as a way, how do we fix it or make it right, is important. The other thing I think is critically important is that having a vested interest in the other person's success or happiness, however they define it. It's not just career or whatever, but however they define it. So, what can I do? What can I sacrifice? What can I impact that will make your life better? And so, if you think about it, if you have two people over a period of time really trying to say, how can I make my spouse, their quality of life better? You have two people going in the same direction, because you're communicating about your goals and objectives, and you're adding value to your experience, your life. And I think, that's important, because the relationship then, it isn't built off of material things. It isn't built off of we're just raising the kids, and then once they leave, do we know each other? It isn't off of being a breadwinner or employment. It's truly based off of each other and making their life more valuable. So what can I do to help you? And so I think that's been what we've really kind of strived for um, over the course of time. And I think we kind of got to that place, not overnight, but when you see someone is having um, a rough patch, or not happy with some aspect of their life, kind of step back. Well, if she's my queen and I'm her king, how can we make their lives better? And so now it really works well, because we found like we're always rowing in the same direction, to make each other's lives better, and we plan a future together and everything. And we never feel like we're just two strangers, in the house passing through the night kind of thing.
Right, right. Awesome. Because I know that has to serve you well, since you guys both kind of work at the same place. Um, and so, how long have you guys been actually in? How long have you both worked at the same place, and what have how have you maintained that? So that, because if we're talking about, and I don't know if you're in the same building, but it's still 24/7 of,
Yeah.
you can easily get into I guess, shop talk, because when you're at the same company and then, and everything else. So what are
Right.
some of those things that you guys have done, or have you had to put up any, I guess, boundaries to say, well, look, we're not talking work tonight, or anything like that?
We've kind of come to that point. I think prior to that, I've been at PNC for 13, 14 years. And I think she's been there 20 years. We've never worked in the same area. So one of the fortunate things is it's a very big company. So
Right.
we don't cross paths that much. Now with COVID, we're both here at home working. We haven't been in the office for over a year. And
Mm.
so it's very easy to have to talk shop. So one of the things we've done is that like at 5 o'clock, we close the laptops and we come, we leave our workspaces and that's it. It's kind of this unwritten rule that, it's over. We try to simulate getting up and leaving work and going to do something else so that we don't have that. Now there's times where we can't avoid it. If there's some big issue and, last year with all the social unrest, PNC had some initiatives and some difficult conversations that we both participated in. We're
Mm.
both part of the Black Leaders Forum at PNC. So there are things that we do overlap. Um, but we try to keep that at a minimum after a certain hour, or else, you would never get rid of it. You would never leave it. So
Right. Right.
that's what we try to do. Can't say it's perfect, but we try.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned those conversations. So, because you're in an executive at a bank, and of course, there's always challenges in the banking industry. So, what was it like, kind of being? I would assume you're probably one of few of the top, as far as management. What were those conversations like, just to participate, and how did you guys lean on each other for strength in that?
So you mean from last year at all
From
the,
last year, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, it was tough. I think Ahmaud Aubrey, kind of set it off, and a lot of black colleagues talk amongst each other. But when Mr. Floyd was that knee on the neck, and um, I just remember that Monday, I said, I don't feel like working today. I just can't.
Mm. Right.
And the our CEO kind of acknowledged it. I think there was just a real pain, unlike we've seen before. And so what we've been able to do, I mean, PNC's had a lot of conversations, and they structured it: listen, learn, and then action. And so the first
Mm.
part was listen. And so there was a lot of either enterprise wide, all the way down the staff meeting level meetings about listen. And being one of the few, and my wife as well, blacks in management, you sort of feel like you're kind of being singled out. But it was really an opportunity to be very candid. And basically the message was, usually every day when something happens in society, your black colleagues come to work with a smile on their face, put their clothes on, and come in and do their job and ask you how your weekend were, how and everything. And we do
Mm.
not bring up what's going on in our communities. We code switch. We talk about other things to fit in. And now we want you to know that your black colleagues are not all right. This is not the first time, but this is something that is impacting us. And you need to understand how this is impacting your black colleagues. That if we're not all right, we're not as productive. We can't satisfy our customers. We can't, work as well together. And, we can't just stay silent for these things. And so a lot of conversations, both in conferences, one-on-one calls, emails, texts, a lot of people, white colleagues, just really not knowing what to say, surprised that this stuff occurs. And then you start to talk about simple things that go on in your life, or, when you're the only black in a meeting and you notice that. So you sit there and think, do I have to talk better? Do I have to dress better? Do I have to make sure I'm sitting up straight? If I make a mistake or someone gives pushback on the point I'm making, it's worse than if a white person does it. Those simple things. When they talk about what's happening outside of work, you what do you say? You can't really talk about, at least before, the stuff in the community or what you see in society that was institutional racism, police brutality,
Right.
inequality. Those things you just didn't talk about. And, now I think a lot of companies are coming around to it. It's still not perfect, but it's been a change. It was tiring. I guess you probably can imagine. I mean, you talk about it over and over and
Yeah.
over again. Then you feel like, as a black person, you're carrying a burden. Not only are you the one dealing with the oppression, but you're also explaining it, and you're also helping people who feel guilty because they didn't know about it. That burden was real. But I think those conversations have to happen. If we're truly going to make progress, difficult conversations need to happen before things get better.
Right. And have you seen a shift from at your organization? And it may be small, but have you started to see a shift in how the culture is going?
I think so. I do think so. Because I know I've been at the bank for a number of years, and I've seen past attempts at diversity and inclusion. But this one is different, where now we have blacks who are part of the executive committee. We have that in our goals and objectives about it, and it's being made clear to management that this is the way the company is going. We also know now, because of consumer habits, that if you don't get it right, it can impact your business. So there is more of a push, I think, now to make sure that we get it right, that they understand that, if you have a large area of the company and there are no black employees, that's a problem. And to say you hire the best and the brightest, or you're doing everything you can, is no longer an excuse. So it'll take more time, but I do think I've seen a difference, which is good.
Great. Yeah. And I think there are companies that are trying to make that shift to be more to have more diversity and inclusion, but we do have a long way to go. But when you're in an organization that at least acknowledges that there have been some inequities and are making choices to try to do different things, that's a good place to start.
Right.
Right. So so in the beginning I showed your video of being a game changer. And I guess are you still doing that project? And what really inspired you to kind of create that? Because I just thought it was awesome. The fact that
Thank you.
saw your community and you wanted to do something about it.
I haven't done it lately simply because of time constraints. So because of corporate, and then my daughter and my son that play AAU basketball. AAU basketball it literally sucks all the time out of your life.
Does.
Hey. Yeah. But yeah, I hope to continue to do more of it. And I wanted to what inspired me was just to tell things from a different perspective. And so I did one project about what the Omega men in Pittsburgh are doing. I'm not a Greek Omega myself. But what they're doing in terms of helping the community, I did one for Homeless Children's Education Fund, which is a nonprofit, and telling those stories about people who are just trying to do better and to make it, who are doing good things though. I mean, this is something that again the news won't show. Black men doing things to help others make it, and it's help on the basic level, which I think is something that's truly missing. Like, oftentimes we see these extraordinary examples of people going above and beyond to help others, which is fantastic. And I don't mean to say that it's not, but there's also a portion of Black men that are just out every day doing the right thing, that are just
Mm.
helping people, and they're doing the right things in their communities, their church, doing the right things by their families, in their jobs. Um, that's never told. Either we're on the extremes of, great entertainers, athletes, and they deserve kudos because that's not easy, or we're on the other side where we're living these self-destructive lifestyles, and that's all people think we are, and it's not the case. I don't have a criminal record. I'm not an entertainer or athlete. I go around my business every day, been married, raising kids, they're off to college, you know, and but I seem almost to some people like a unicorn. And
Mm.
excuse me. And I notice it when I see a lot of things trying to address inequality in society. The first thing they point to is criminal justice reform, which is needed. I'm not saying it's not. Um, Things to help low to moderate income, again, which is needed. But I don't fit either of those buckets. And I'm also suffering from systemic racism. And so it tells me that society sees me as either someone that needs help dealing with the criminal justice system, or they need help because I'm poor. And I'm not. And even though we make up a percentage of that, I think it's important that you see, Black men who are just out every day trying to do the right thing, and not label us or put us in these extreme buckets, on either side.
Right.
And those stories, I think, just need to be out there more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to do the
Yeah,
podcast,
thank you for doing this.
because it does it's tough when you're when it is opposite sides of the spectrum, because when you are just out in the community or just interacting with people, they're going to obviously think you're either one side or the other. Wait, I know you don't look like an entertainer, so you must be you must be on the other side of the spectrum, and
Right.
we have all different, we have different people with all walks of life. We have people that are doing well. We have people that are not. And that what's what makes us human. And so, by being able to showcase these, you and others, just does make it a lot more holistic. So, and it just
Yeah,
needs to be done, and more people need to do it.
exactly. So thank you for doing it. It
Yeah,
needs to be
absolutely,
done.
absolutely, absolutely. So, um, you know, on this show, I don't know if you watch, but on this my last episode, I did a podcast with Dr. Jan Niemi from he's from Washington State, and
Hmm.
we were talking about prostate cancer
Mm.
among Black men and people of Black men, and we talked about you know uh, men not going out and get tested and trying to find out where they are, baseline figures of where they are. So I do know that and we talked earlier that you were diagnosed with prostate cancer. So
Right.
kind of take me back to that day, and for one, and then what was it like to tell your family, and then how
Mm.
did they keep you strong during that time? Because I know that was one of the things that I admired about you, just going through your, not trolling, but just going through, getting a sense of who you are, your strong sense of family. So I'd love to hear that, because one, that's just one thing that we as Black men won't do. We won't tell those stories, especially when it's not glowing. When we're going
Right.
through adversity, we'll tend to not share it. So I'd love if you would share that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate. I had a doctor that, because I'm African American, I started getting tested for prostate and colon cancer early. Um, So when I got the PSA and the exam, and 1 year the PSA spiked, and so went to the urologist and everything, battery of tests, and everything, and that whole time of going through tests and everything before I got diagnosed, I was kind of in denial. I thought, I used to be a good athlete. I'm in good
Mm-hmm.
shape. I'm young. I mean, of course, I don't have cancer. Um, and when the doctor called me one evening, and I kind of suspected something because he called and didn't leave a message. And he called back and he said, "Look, I'm just not going to beat around the bush. It's cancerous." Yeah, I think I went blank. I didn't hear anything else he said,
Mm,
because
right.
you just that's just something you don't want to hear, and you hear all the horror stories about cancer and what that means. And he was very, positive. We're gonna beat this, and so the first thing I did was call Stephanie, and very quick call. She just basically hung the phone and decided to come home from where she was, and we're in the bedroom in tears, and at the time the kids were home, so they saw something was amiss. So at the time, I decided to. I said I should just tell them, and I don't know if that was good or bad, because I don't think I did it. I could do a good job of comforting them, because I didn't have all the information. I'm still reeling from the news. So my youngest son at the time, who was probably 5, I think, we just told him I had a stomach ache, and so not to burden him with that. But my daughters knew, and they took it really hard,
Mm-hmm.
as my family did, because it's the first time we had any experience with this. So my wife is always was there with her very quiet strength. She just is always constant, always there. Um, it can be anything from a word of encouragement, um, to simply holding my hand, talking to the doctors for me. Um, so from that standpoint, it was very uplifting, and my kids who were dealing with it were, I think, not trying to burden with asking a lot of questions. They tried to maintain normalcy as much as possible. Um, and our extended friends and family were phenomenal as well. I mean, everyone was shocked. Um, all my guys from Georgetown were so supportive, here constantly. Even here in Pittsburgh, when I went through surgery, um, you got Chuck Pettiford. I know you don't know him, but in case he's listening and
Yeah.
acknowledge it, he was unbelievable, showing up at the hospital, at the house. You know, extended couples that we kind of fellowship with constantly were incredible, coming to the house and helping. So that was huge. And so I felt very much so that, once I figured out what it was and what the prognosis was, and I had the pros- radical robotic prostatectomy. I hope I'm getting that right. So basically, it
Okay.
was the prostate was removed via robotic type procedure,
Gotcha.
but um, really using that as a way to tell the kids that you can survive, you can be anything. You know, not only early detection is a good life lesson, but positive attitude, that this won't stop you. This won't stop
Mm,
anything you do in life. Um, when the cancer came back, earlier this year, it was kind of a little bit of the same. My wife, really took it hard, and because she's like, "Oh no, we're going down this path again." My kids took it very hard again. And so this time, though, I felt more empowered that, no, this is going to be fine. It's okay. And I can
because it was
explain it.
it was
This
a
is what it
surprise,
is.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't this time. It came back, but I felt like I was better equipped, and I felt like it's not going to defeat me. So I had to sort of be there and comfort them and let them know and keep a bright face, positive attitude. Um, and if something was bothering me, and basically the radiation, I had a reaction to the radiation of really bad fatigue and some other issues, but you kind of talk to them about it, and you never let them see you defeated, and use it as a life lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I have done, afterwards is everyone, that I knew, tell them to go get tested. Black men sometime or don't want to go to the doctor, don't want to get tested. Some people don't want to get the exam because they have some, issues with that. But it can save your life. If you don't get tested for prostate early enough and it spreads, at that time it's just maintenance. You can't get cured of it. You got to get it early. So, using to say, hey, you can be cured of this. Get out and get tested. Doctors, that's what they're there for. That's what they're trained for. And so there's nothing wrong with seeking help if you need it. So go out, get tested, so you can live on and be with your family, friends, live a great life.
Yeah, that's great. That's a testimony, brothers. If you're listening and you haven't been tested, if you need any more proof, the past episode, there was an actual doctor that gave the statistics and really implore you to go out and get tested and check. Because if you don't have your health, it's tough, and we all need to be there for our families and friends.
Right.
And our wives and parents and kids. It's very important. So thank you for that. That's very empowering, and I applaud you for your strength and everything. So
no problem.
So on a different note, you talked about your kids. So you have 3 kids, just like I have 3. I have 2 boys and a girl, but you have 2 girls and a boy.
Yeah.
And they all have varied degrees of interest. So what are some of the things that you've done, I guess, to feed their passion? Because you have a freshman. Is it freshman in college?
She's a sophomore.
She's a sophomore in college. You have a soon-to-be freshman in college, and then you have a 11-year-old. So a lot of different stages in life. So what did you do to feed their passions and keep them excited about the lives that they're doing right now?
Yeah, I think we took raising our kids. I think it's kind of evolved over time, but there's kind of 4 things I look at when raising kids that I think is very critically important. First is obviously lots of love. And kids should know every day that they're loved and they're valued, and that home is a safe space. And telling them that you love them, not only in passing, but sometimes you got to grab them by their head and look at them in the eyes and tell them you love them all the time. Flip side of that is a lot of discipline. And I don't mean discipline always in the face of anger, but explaining you're not allowed to do this, or you have to do something because of X, Y, and Z. We're being restrictive to teach you a lesson. And so to help them, and I think those 2 things give them a great foundation, educationally, emotionally, and things. The other 2 things is, the one thing is never squash a child's dream, no matter how out there it is. Never do that, because that can develop and lead lifelong lessons. So my one daughter, who's going to Georgetown, when she was young, had this obsession with dolphins, and she wanted to create what's called Dolphin World, similar to SeaWorld or Disney. And so we bought every book we could on dolphin, blankets, pillows, books. But what that taught her, she could read and tell you every species of dolphin. So she became a voracious reader. she also could talk to anyone about it. So that gave her confidence speaking, confidence in front of grown-ups. Every night she would come in her journal in my room and she would help plan. So she started keeping a journal, organizing and writing. And so
Wow.
she grew out of that dolphin world. But those lessons last. And
Mm.
that's something that I think sometimes parents squash dreams. I think you should never do that. You take those dreams to let them grow and expand and let them figure out who they are. The last thing is that meet kids where they are, and by that I mean, um, let them lead sometime. So my oldest daughter uh, has wanted to be an architect since she was in like sixth grade. And so, I try to, as a dad, have a one-on-one trip with each of my kids a year, weekend.
Right.
And she plans them, she leads them, and we go and look at museums, which is a big thing. We go to bookstores. One time, she wanted to go to every bookstore in Pittsburgh. I want to go to a museum, learn about art. So I got out of my comfort zone and tried to understand as much about her world as I could. And so that I would meet her where she is. And so the connection is greater. And so that way I can help and support her more to whatever she wanted to do. I think all the steps have led them to be not only great students, but very passionate about what they want to do. Lauren is extremely passionate about architecture, Natalie about basketball, but probably even more passionate about civil rights. She's the Black Student Alliance president. And so she is, she is just very, very passionate about it. And a lot of it had to be just inspiring her to do those things. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think that's the one thing. I mean, kids, uh, they just need to be, if you give them some direction, some parameters around with love and discipline, and then they can flourish. I don't, I've had my shot is the way I look at it. I did what I wanted to do, went and ran track and went my corporate life. I'm not going to enforce that on them, but I'm going to empower them to be the best version of themselves that they want to be.
Right.
And so when, whether it's Dolphin World or wanting to be an architect, we're like, go for it, plan accordingly and go for it. And so it seems to be working out. And so I'm very, very proud of them because I think they're going to go off and do bigger and better things than probably I could do. So
Yeah.
somebody to take care of me when I get old.
Right. I'm looking for that too. Trust me. But I like the fact that you used to meet them where they are, because I think we can, a lot of times we can fall back on maybe what we did to be successful, and also and think that, hey, we know the path. But then also, if we haven't been as successful as we thought, can
Right.
also somewhat bring that fear as well, that if because if you don't do this, then you'll end up where I am. So I applaud you for that, because it's the fact that you did enjoy your time, no matter what it was, what your experience was. You are able to say, hey, you're going to be in charge of your own life, and I will be there to support that. So
Right.
that's a great way. That's a great way to go when we're thinking about raising our kids, and especially a lot of us in our age, our kids are starting to really think about their lives, because they're going to college, or
Mm-hmm.
their job, and what careers that they want to do in order to make their life better. And of course, now with social media, makes they think they can all be a certain thing, and so
Oh, right.
allowing them to really explore and think of what they want to do is really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
So
important.
yeah,
So
yeah.
important.
But one thing I think, of course, your family probably knows you very well, and so what would your family say is one thing they do that gets you triggered?
That get me triggered.
Yes.
Well, that's a good question. When they don't clean up, I mean, it's still the kitchen is the bane of our existence. We cannot get them to efficiently clean up the kitchen. That's the one thing. I think the one thing that they notice about me, like being out like at shopping or a restaurant or buying something, that if you pay for something and don't get don't get what you think you deserve, don't sit idly by. And so I think we were at a restaurant. We were at Cornell this past weekend. We were at a restaurant and we had reservations, and I thought they were taking abnormally long for us to get a table, and it wasn't as efficient as I would have expected. And so my oldest daughter is like, "Don't start snapping at staff. They're just working." And I'm like, "No, I'm just, but if you expect something and you're paying for it, this isn't charity, just let them know." But I think, that in the kitchen, it's really the kitchen though, because that's every
Every
day.
day.
Every day. I can't get them to clean the kitchen.
And do you guys usually like have meals, like family meals every night?
We do. We try as much as we can.
Okay.
With their my daughter's basketball schedule is kind of hard, but we try to right around 6:00.
Right.
Try to eat meals as much as we can.
Right. So they know there's dishes that need to be put away, and
yeah.
and it's not like they're doing the cooking, and so like, hey,
right.
put the dishes away, right?
Right.
How hard is it?
Put them, wipe off the counter, like they walk past just crumbs and just stuff. And it's just like, really?
So right. So who is it? You or Stephanie that usually comes from behind and cleans up the rest of the mess?
I think Steph may clean up. I'm the one that says something, and so I always feel like the bad guy because I'm always saying something. But but now I've gotten to the point. I'm like, look, clean up because your mom's gonna be mad. So I found a way to put the blame off on her when it's really me.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I mean, when they're all together, we have actually a chalkboard. Black on
nice.
The wall, the black chalk, and then is a rotating schedule. So, I mean, they do some aspects together, but then there's one individual that needs to make sure it's completely clean. So there's a little tidbit for you as they get together for this, as they come together back for the summer or whenever. So,
all right,
this has been fantastic, and as I do and kind of end with all of my shows is we really talk about things that we're doing, but we don't think about how we feel. So I'd love to hear you. What is on your mind right now as a black man in America?
Ooh, that's a good question. What's on my mind as a black man in America is I see the Jim Crow coming back in some respects, with the what's going on in Georgia and what's going on with the election, the last administration. So what I worry about is the ability for my kids to get a fair shot, what they will see and what they will experience, which we were hoping they weren't. This past year was tough. I mean, I'm no exception. It was tough on all black families. My son was really having a difficult time because when I would leave the house to go walk or do any exercise, he saw the footage of Ahmaud Arbery being shot. My daughter was dealing with the social media, these kids doing the George Floyd joke or whatever, like kneeling and stuff. And so this stuff is triggering to them. And as a black man, I worry about, I cannot protect them the way I always hoped I could. And so it worries me that I may provide for them like a great education and everything, but then they're going to go out in society and just be judged and valued unfairly because they're black. And it's probably very naive, but always hoping that we would be beyond this and they wouldn't have to deal with it. But that's the thing that really worries me right now. I just it's just it's unfair, and it's just a shame we're at this point. So, you know, I value you in these type of forums. We need to do more of them so that um, you confidence is my favorite word, and that's the word that I told my kids from the minute they could understand them, that confidence is the greatest word that you can have. Not cockiness, but confidence. And so they're going to need it dealing with the society we're in. And so that's the thing that really frustrates me right now, that I think about quite a bit.
Great. That's fantastic. Well, I have to say, Pittsburgh is a much better place with you in it, you and your family, because I think your family's awesome, and you should be commended and proud of what you and Stephanie are both doing within the community, the business community, and also your family. So I thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Keith,
welcome.
and thank you. I mean, I thank you for doing this. I mean, you're providing a platform, and it's well done. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, hold on a sec.
Hoya Saxon.
Yeah, all the way. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's podcast, Black Men Speak. You can also you'll be able to catch the show if you missed tonight on wherever you receive your favorite podcast. So if I have to leave you tonight with any kind of thoughts, it's one, brothers out there, make sure you get tested, your PSA test. If you are in your 40s and up, make sure you go find your doctor, get tested, and do what you need to do to be there for not only your wife, but your children, and just your communities, however the best you can. So thank you, and we'll see you soon. Peace.